Podcast. This is Comedian Nazareth, and thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. here in Southern California, 8:30 p.m. in Central Coast, and wherever you are, it'll be a different timing. Again, Laughter for All podcast is a place where you can come and laugh, be encouraged, and hear comedians who can be real and talk about their real life and open up. And you can see the other side of the comedian, but also in the process, we do laugh. Also, we bring people like, Lee Strobel and Josh McDowell, and we bring comedians and artists and models and Mrs. American, Mr. American, all these people, whoever we feel that will be able to help you and encourage you, boom, they'll be on the show. Also, of course, I sneak in some of my friends, especially the ones I haven't seen for a while, so I can enjoy it. And today is no exception. My friend Claiborne Cox, I call him a friend because when I met him many years ago at the Christian Comedy Association, man, this guy was funny, was so funny. I'm like, I don't I don't know. I've never seen you, but you are hilarious. And we kind of stayed a little bit in touch, and we tried to maybe do stuff together. But it's always good to keep the relation, the brotherhood of the comics. Claiborne Cox is a Southern deadpan comedian. I emphasize deadpan. With an offbeat delivery and stage presence, he's a family man from Alabama. And his brand new dry bar comedy special is planned to release this fall. Claiborne's also extremely good looking. Yes, I won't second that. I'll stick with the deadpan. And is currently writing his own bio in the third person. Oh, that's big. You know you're getting big when you have to write your bio in the third person. Please welcome my friend Claiborne Cox. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. You are in Alabama, right? Where in Alabama are you?
In Auburn, Alabama, the college town.
Oh, so what would say, what do they call it? Eagle? No, is that a bad thing?
So there's a little rub. Our mascot is the Tigers, but
The
our war
tiger.
cry is War Eagle. So you're not right, but you're not wrong either.
So War Eagle is good to say, right?
It is good to say. Yes, sir.
But people from Alabama would hate me for it, right?
They would hate you for that. You're correct.
So before we start, let's talk about your dry bar comedy. And I know when I did my dry bar, there was no, it was BC before coronavirus.
Right.
So we had a full audience. We had two shows, and the laughter was not an issue. When you shot it, when did you shoot your special?
Thankfully, it was shot late January 2020. So also full crowd, clean consciences, no global pandemic. And so it was a lot of fun.
Really, in January 2020, you still had a full audience.
Yes, or that because the thing came down in March of 2020. So
You shot it before,
right, barely before.
and still it didn't come out yet.
Right. So it was supposed to come out about a year ago, but of course the pandemic pushed it back. And since what used to be VidAngel Studios has made some what I think are wise business decisions. They're now Angel Studios, and they've done
Yeah.
some things, made some deals. And so it's supposed to come out now about a month from now, October. So I think it'll be good that it has delayed, but
Yes. You know what I heard, that because they lost their court case to Disney, that Disney might be able to play this on their Disney Plus streaming channel, and if that
really.
happens, that's good for all of us.
Oh wow, I did not know that. Right.
So, how did you feel about your sets? I mean, how did it go for you?
I was very pleased, but 5 minutes before going out on the stage, I get nervous before some shows, depending on varying degrees of nerves.
Yeah,
Before that one, I almost had crippling fear, which is uncommon. I mean, just the magnitude. It was dry bar, and so if the show goes poorly, the dry bar goes poorly, and that's a big show. And
yeah.
so I prayed, and once I went out there and told one joke, thankfully the crowd responded well, and then it was like a puncher got one punch out, and it was so much fun after that.
And the second show, you were very comfortable, right?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay.
After,
Now,
at that point, if the first show goes well, the pressure's completely off at that
right.
point, right?
Yeah, I know my son did it, because they were looking for younger comics. And first set, he was so nervous. And the second set, he was too relaxed.
I
So
didn't
I
know
was like,
your son had done it. Has his come out yet?
no, not yet. It'll be a while before it comes out. But I'm so happy for that because that really got me millions of views. And it
Mm.
also what I noticed because the pandemic happened, and so I didn't really feel how many people saw it and all that, other than the numbers. But I had people come to the few shows that we did during the pandemic, and they go, "Oh yeah, I saw you on Dry Bar." So now
Really?
it gave the legitimacy. So you said you prayed before the show.
Oh,
Now,
did I ever?
so how what do you do when you're like let's say there's people who are watching right now, maybe they're not comedians, but they have to give a speech, or they have to give to go before an audience in their business, in their life, in their whatever they do. What do you do? How do you relax yourself when you're in that nervous? It's a big deal. What do you do?
I do pray a lot prior to. Um, I'll get people to pray for me too, and just I'll try to talk to a person or two. I try to even meet people and learn their names and start to mention them throughout by name. That helps out so much. It's more conversational and less speechy.
Right now, you prayed. That means you're a Christian. When did you come to know Christ?
That is a great question, and the thing is when the end of time comes, I will be in heaven because of what Jesus has done for me. The time that happened, I mean, I could name multiple times in my life when I came to Jesus, and which one was the one where he took me into himself and filled me with his Holy Spirit. I'm not certain exactly the point that it happened. I do know that there's no way to have a right relationship with God apart from Jesus Christ, and so He's the reason why I will be with God in the future. But the point in time it happened, I'm honestly not certain.
Yeah, but see, the reason I'm asking, like, were your parents Christians, or were you just, to me, my parents were not. So it was my first. I was 28, so I was thinking, like, did you come from a Christian family, or what? What?
I did. My grandfather was a pastor. My parents went to Bible college, and I think that was a difficult thing transition wise. So I don't have a past of, drug abuse and things like that. I definitely have sins, deep heart sins like everyone does.
You? No,
So,
wait. You're too
you,
nice.
oh
No,
man,
you're too nice. No, you don't.
but that
Well,
made it difficult to not have the A to B transition that some people have who did not come from that upbringing.
now, you can. I saw your stand up, and it's hilarious, and you're a dead fan. Now, I can assume you weren't the class clown, but you were the guy that made the class clown, right? You throw those quiet jokes, right, and you never get in trouble for it.
I put the guy up to the pranks that he did. So I was the power behind the throne there.
So, what do you call? When did you start doing comedy stand up?
Excuse me. So I mean, I think you'll agree with this. I think every comedian started doing comedy before he officially started doing comedy, right? And so I mean, I started doing comedy as a kid. I was an only child and had to have something to make people like me, and so I'd try to make them laugh. Officially, one night at a coffee shop. Honestly, it's kind of like the thing about becoming a Christian. It does happen at a point, but sometimes the point's difficult to discern. Like one night, I can tell you, I went to a coffee shop and I told a bunch of stories and people laughed at them. So that might be the point I became a comedian. But then eventually I got paid $50 and then got paid a few $100. And so uh, I would say the point where I told stories at the coffee shop was officially the point, but I don't know. Just been making people laugh for many,
You
many years. So
you gotta keep track of the main events in your life,
right,
Claiborne. I
right.
mean, these are two big events that you don't know when they happen. Oh, that's funny. So have you always lived in Alabama?
Always have lived in Alabama. Yes, sir.
Now, I gotta say, we're a lot of California. There's about 60 people on this right now live, and there'll be thousands on it. And a lot of these 60, I think some of them are in the West Coast. What is the You don't fit the stereotype of we, the Alabama guy.
So I I have to be careful here because I live here and I love it here. Alabama is very special, very unique. We have a pretty spotty, troubled past, and there are reasons why the caricatures of Alabama exist. However, we've come a long way, and here in Auburn is a college town, and we feel a little different here in this bubble than in the meat of Alabama. Does that make sense? This is
Yeah.
Auburn, Alabama. This isn't middle Alabama. And so
I had the pleasure of performing in Auburn, and I did Talladega and all that. So, you know, I mean, my question wasn't condescending because I
oh,
come
no,
from
no.
a state that doesn't have water, that we're trying to recall our governor, that businesses are leaving us. So I'm not bragging about California, but when I was in Alabama, I did a week in Alabama with Chuck Colson's ministry, and my wife came with me, and she noticed something that I know. People dress nice in where we were. We're in I think we were in Montgomery,
Mhm.
and people are dressed nice. Like you go in the park and people are dressed like nice golf shirts and regular slacks, where in California was everybody like shorts and jeans and stuff. So it was really interesting. I'm like, I really love that part of Alabama. But what okay, so when you're like, let's say you are walking around, and what kind of jokes hit you personally? I mean, how does your mind work as a comedian? What is the how is the joke like birth in your head?
So, well, it used to be, I used to get up early in the morning before my day job, and I would get up and just write. And then I had kids, and I just can't do that anymore. And so now, little things like the teenagers, I work at a high school as the day job, and the teenagers are hilarious. And so, like, I'll get them to sign my yearbook, and the yearbook signatures have started to infiltrate their way into my show. And so, yeah, family, of course, having kids, gold mine, right? Teenagers are a gold mine too, and that has been helpful. And oh man, not just the jokes. One of my favorite things now, Naz, is just the crowd work, because at the day job, at teaching with high schoolers, that's all day, every day is banter and back and forth dialogue. And so, oh, I love bouncing just improv off of the teenagers.
You know, so you are more like, you did both. You sit and sometimes write, or you just think of something and you come and do it. Now, tell me about, because I know I used to do youth groups many years ago. And what is different about it? Is it true that high schoolers today, and you teach high school, right?
Right.
Are
Yes.
they as are they saying like they're rude now? They don't listen to the professors, the teachers. Are they like, they're on their phones? What is it like? I mean, I haven't been in a high school class in a long time.
Well, I can't speak to every teenager. And again, we're in a college town. It's a very smart, educated, a lot of professors' kids and doctors' kids and things like that that live here. But um, they're brilliant. Of course, again, there's caricatures for a reason, but there's a broad spectrum. And they very, very talented, very, very smart. They they are on their phones a good bit unless they are invested in their class. And thankfully, they typically get invested in my class and stay off. They they are quick to crack jokes, which can but is not always a good thing. And so, yeah, I mean, the stereotypes are there for a reason, but certainly many kids break the mold and are brilliant and fun, and they're honest. They're an honest crowd. If they don't think something's funny, they're not going to laugh.
But being a comedian, you kind of let them get away with jokes more than a different teacher, correct?
Oh, I think so. Being a comedian, and then also just it's a very social class. We work on projects. I teach them to use Photoshop. So while they're working on projects, we talk the entire time, and oh yeah, it's lots of fun. We have a good time.
And have you ever got so mad in the class at someone who's trying to heckle you or distract you in the class to where you?
I prefer the hecklers. I actually like hecklers because I enjoy the banter. Every now and then I'll get so mad at a kid, and it's rare. They have to really do something. But my first year teaching at the high school, I'll never forget. I mean, steam coming out of my ears, and this is like 19 years ago, 18 years ago now. And I went and I just was venting to the teacher next door, and she was a little more seasoned than me, and she'd been there a while. And she said, "Yeah, that thing that kid did, I bet you never did that when you were a teenager, did you?" And I mean, that shut me up so fast.
Now, you had your day job, and praise God for that. Because of the pandemic, a lot of comedians went out of, they started looking for a day job. But have you ever went, I would love to be full time. I would love to go into comedy full time.
When I retire from the day job, I think I would really enjoy to either do public speaking or comedy full time. Right now, I just love the balance. The
Mm.
stage time is endless. Really, like I feel like I get at least as much stage time because there's 3 96-minute classes every single day. And so, yeah, I mean, someday I'd like to go full time. At this point, I love splitting the balance.
That's interesting. I've never heard a comedian who says that. Like, oh, everyone would say, "Oh, I can't wait, man! I can't wait to really get out of the day job, and I can't wait to do comedy full time." And you're enjoying the balance because to you, being able to go in front of people and sharing the funny thoughts in your head is satisfying enough, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. So, um,
Interesting. Now,
lots of feedback from the teenagers too. They're instant feedback, and so now on stage, I prefer the stage the crowd work uh, at least as much as the joke telling. A lot of times, just because that's become the comfort zone now.
just talking to the audience and all that. But other than that, I mean, I enjoy that a lot. But I feel like I want to go on stage and I want to try these new bits
Right.
and
Sure.
work on that. But so let's focus a little more on the high school kids, well, because you know more about them than a lot of people. And what is going on with that generation? What do you think? What from your perspective? What is going on?
Well, obviously, technology has turned the culture. I'm in the weird zone where half of my life was with current technology and half was without it. When we read books and went to libraries and used phones on walls and things like that. These kids, they grew up with it all their lives. And so because of that, they have a lot of information. They have a different type of sense of humor because they've grown up adapting what they see on YouTube and clips from like TikTok and things like that, and that's altered their processing and super smart. I feel like maybe more than ever they have the opportunity to be entitled, um, just because they have so much at their fingertips, and not all fall into entitlement, but it's just a lot easier for them to fall into that particular trap. The pitfalls that they have the capacity to fall into are endless. Like you and I, if we wanted to sin, we might have to walk somewhere in order to sin. They can sin anywhere at any point in the day. But there's a lot of temptations out there, and so I do not envy the position that they're in.
That's a great point. The 3 points you shared is really, really, and I mean, I'm a parent, and I see a lot of youth sometimes, but that's what they're going. Number one, you're right. Their sense of humor is different than us. I mean, I don't think they would take a long joke. Like, remember we used to tell a joke, or you write a bit, and the setup is longer than normal. They don't have that time. And then the second, like my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, she goes, "Dad, that's not funny." And I go, "Wait, this joke got screaming
Sure.
laughter in the last three shows." But she goes, but we're different, Dad. But our generation doesn't think that's funny. We think this is funny, and so you're right. The second point, there is that entitlement because they, I think we worked very hard so we can make our that generation a lot more entitled. We gave them what they want, and they feel they can, they can get DoorDash when they want. They can get whatever music they want when they want. They can watch whatever movie they want when they want. We didn't have that, so you're entitled. And the third thing, you're right. They're very smart. I mean, sometimes you try to, when I used to tell my dad something, or, when my parents said something, I took it to the bank. I didn't have to go, I didn't have Google to go back and say, oh, my parents don't know what they're talking about. So
That's very true. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no, no, go ahead. You teach Photoshop,
I do.
which is amazing. Now, do you get all these girls? All they care about is to make themselves look better on their pictures look better. Is that a big thing?
So before I answer your question, the people are probably going to notice that I have a ticklish throat is not COVID. I had a cold 3 weeks ago or so. I tested negative for COVID. Just want to put everybody at ease. I do have a ticklish throat from that. Tested negative. I don't have it. Just want to put everybody at a peace of mind. So
Don't worry, I have a mask on my Wi-Fi, so you're fine.
okay. So it turns out, they don't do a lot of themselves. What we typically do is we work with our athletics department. And so like before a football game, for instance, we'll design the poster that goes out on social media to advertise the football game. And if we win, and our team is very, very good, so they usually do, we'll have a poster that says Auburn wins, and that goes out on social media. So we try to partner with people and do like actual advertising for various local things and things like that. Oh, one more thing you reminded me of regarding the teenagers was when we were growing up, we were more communal, I think, because we had no phones. We had to see people face to face and enjoy things as a group or a classroom or things like that. And so now there's so much on these things, and so their entertainment is not super often with a crowd. It's isolated one-on-one. So coming to a comedy show is not their primary form of intake of comedy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. You're right. It makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't. It's not promising to a lot of comedians.
Right. That's very true. That's very true. They're not the easiest crowd. They're really not. They're fun, but they're not the easiest crowd.
And then I noticed this the other day with my daughter and her friend. She hasn't seen her friend for a few months, and they got together, and you can tell on their face they're excited to see each other, and they hug. No conversation after that. They don't know how to communicate. They're I mean, each one sat on her phone, and just like once in a while they go, oh, watch this TikTok. They could not communicate. They were like excited to see each other, but they didn't know how to communicate with each other. So that's interesting. So when the pandemic happened, how has that impacted you? Number one, as a comedian, and number two, as a teacher.
Oh man, so we had to do virtual for I guess March to May, so a couple months, and then last year, all year they were being quarantined. They'd be in and out. We'd have a classroom full of physical students, but maybe 4 would be out, and so we're trying to record everything. It was a very, very different year, but the kids behaved extra well because I think the kids who wanted to be at school were at school, and so behavior-wise, it was wonderful. It was just a little extra work. It was very interesting. We basically day one of the pandemic, we were in the hospital to have a baby, and so our third child came into the world maybe the day after Disney shut down, and that's when we realized when Disney shut down, that's when this is serious because Disney does not give up the opportunity to make money. So when Disney shut down, the NBA shut down, we were like, oh, we need to start watching the news now. We had heard about coronavirus over there. That's a thing that exists over there
in California.
But as soon as they start shutting down the big businesses, we're like, okay. So we had a baby, She grows up for the first 6 months of her life in social distancing during not just like the pandemic, but I mean the shutdown, when the world was shut down. So for like
Right.
6 months, she thinks there's like 7 people on this green planet. Like that's it, right? And so I mean, it was like Adam and Eve times for her. There's a few kids out there, and that's it. So suddenly the culture thaws out, and social distancing becomes a little more reasonable. Where you can see other humans at a distance, and she realizes, oh, I guess there's more than like me and the people in my house that live on this green earth. So it's been interesting for her.
Good. So, how old is your first child? How old?
11 years old, 9 years old, and now 17 months old.
Oh, so you're like me. I mean, I did that. John, then Carol 2.5 years later, then 7 years later,
Yeah.
we had Tally. That's that. So, as a comedian, how did that impact you, the whole pandemic?
Oh man. Well, goodness. I mean, obviously there were not a lot of shows. I did. Did you do a lot of Zoom shows? I had 2 Zoom shows. Did you do any of those?
I did two or three. I don't like to do Zoom. I just
Right.
I just didn't feel it. But I do a show every night on the Live with Naz every weeknight. So I'm talking and I'm getting feedback from my community of fans and people that follow the show. So to me, it was satisfying enough to where I didn't have to do the Zoom.
Right.
But
Right.
you're right; it's hard. Now, if someone came to you and said, "Okay, Claiborne, you can either be a comedian, you can be a professor or a teacher, or you can be a public speaker. You can only do one. Which one would you do?"
Well, I mean, of course, I'd pray before I answer the question. I just want to do the one that the Lord God wants me to. I believe He's sovereign, and I believe He's got a plan pre-planned for me, and so I want to walk that path. Man, uh, goodness gracious, that is tough. They overlap so much. Like I'd teach Photoshop. I design posters for my shows and for other comedians.
No
And
wonder they look great.
so and then vice versa, like comedy wise, my comedy infiltrates my teaching, my teaching banter infiltrates my comedy. And so man, that's like asking, do you like breathing in or breathing out better?
It's an imaginary question. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to do that to you. But what
Right,
I'm
you
saying,
still
what
stress
would
me
be?
out.
Oh, I'm stressing you out. I'm sorry. Okay, let me rephrase it. What I'm saying is, where do you get the most enjoyment? Are you when you're on stage doing comedy, when you're teaching, or when you're public speaking? What gives you? Maybe it's a 1 degree more than the other. I mean, it doesn't have to be that varied.
Right. I mean, I guess it depends on the show, of course. Some shows are better than others, and some days it scored better than others. If I had to pick one right now, um, I think I would go with teaching right now. But because it's a very social class, and I get to enjoy conversing and things like that. So
Now, if when you do your stand up, do you find that a lot of your jokes can fit better with younger crowd? Because a lot of comics, I mean, that's a challenge after 30 years of comedy. To me, is like, I can do a high school. I mean, I can do a youth group, but high school group, but it's like I don't want it unless it pays very well. I don't want it. It's not like I used to jump on him like before. Do you feel that you can relate more to younger crowd because of your profession?
I think so, and a lot of it comes down, I think, to banter. Instead of just telling jokes in front of them, I will try to talk to them and bring up things that are present in the room. This jacket or the way that this person laughs, or the things that just happen to come up. And I'll try to tell them stories that are somewhat relatable to them, rather than just my standard one-liners. One time I'll tell you this, Naz. One time my principal asked me to do comedy in the cafeteria during lunch for all 4 lunch
Ooh.
waves. And we're at a big,
Oh.
big high school, so the cafeteria is full for 4 lunch waves at a time. So I'm there for about 2 hours doing 30 minutes and at a time. Pretty, pretty brutal. And so they don't care what I have to say. They're eating. That's their time to socialize. And so, but the only potential lifeline was again just talking to them, picking at them, talking to this guy that I know about this thing that he does, or that kind of thing. They don't care about one-liners. He asked me to do it the following year, and one of very very few times I told my boss I don't think I should say yes to what you're asking. So,
No, was there a moment or a time where you felt you literally changed the life of one of your students? You impacted them. You feel, wow, that's a story. That's a moment that you went home, told your wife about it with excitement.
I mean, it's certainly not just me, but the program
Okay,
itself is a.
hold on.
Oh, here we go.
No, no, no. It's okay. I can do that. I'm professional.
All right.
I can.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry
uh,
about that. My
the
camera
program
sometimes.
the program itself is a very neat one, and it's well funded. It's a career technical education program. It's called Advertising Design, and the Lord God, He made everybody so uniquely with gifts and talents and things like that. And I do think that the program existing, it did not exist for me in high school. There was nothing like this at all. But the fact that some of the kids get to come into a program and see this is what I was made to do. Like that, this is I have this in my DNA to create this type of thing, and so they will go on to major in it in college and do it professionally. I've got two from last year currently working, just now beginning at Auburn University to work for their athletics department and do some pretty relevant projects. And so the fact that the program exists, I do think changes some directions. So.
Hmm. But for you, was there a special moment, like someone going through a hard time, someone going through a problem that you were part of, involved, that affected them?
It's very conversational in class, and so we talk about a broad range of topics, and sometimes that does come down to some deep things, and sometimes some theological or spiritual things. It varies day to day. What happens with that, I don't know, and I don't use the word cockroaches against teenagers. Except, here's my point. When there's cockroach poison, the cockroach comes and gets it. It does not die immediately. It takes it back to its nest, and then it infects the other cockroaches. You don't see the effects of it, but they happen behind walls, right? So
Mm.
same thing with our conversations. I don't know what has and hasn't happened behind the doors of their home, but I know we've had some interesting conversations at school that hopefully have benefited them in some way. I just don't necessarily see the effects. Does that
Have
make
you,
sense?
have you, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. No, that makes sense. And that's very humble of you to even say that because some people, they're like, look what I did. It
Yes,
was
I'm
me.
very humble. You're
You
correct.
are. Humble. Okay, and now as far as your comedy interfering with your teaching, have you ever had these challenges where you have to go out of town or you had this big gig but you have to be in class? How is that? How do you work that out?
Um, Typically, it works out okay. They give me a decent amount of off days to take. It just comes with the contract. You can take X number of off days. And comedy is typically a weekend thing. And so, like, just for instance, I've got a couple shows coming up at Gutty's. I think you've been there before. And
No,
just
not yet, but I've heard a lot about it. In
okay,
Indiana, I think. Is it in
right.
Indiana?
Yes, sir. And so
Do they pay? Do they pay? Is it a
I
good
do.
pay or no?
The they I'm sure it varies what they're paying me. I would we'll talk later, but it's enough.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
I agreed to it. They offered and I said yes, so I think
okay.
that for you, I think they probably would pay more than me because you're more well known than I am, so
That's not
um
bad. But it's in India. So they gave you time off to you were able to do that, right?
so it happens to be on Labor Day and it's two shows. I'm gonna take off Friday, do a Friday and Saturday show and be back to work the following week. And that's fairly common. And also I don't have as many shows as you do, so it's not that big of an issue.
You know what's neat about you, Claiborne, is you do what you love to do, your hobby, your what do you call it, your what you're gifted at, but also you still enjoy your day job, and you still, and you have a balanced life, and you have three kids, and it's so neat to see how you're enjoying your comedy, and you're doing great job, and your name is out there. I mean, always you see Claiborne, but at the same time you're enjoying the teaching, and you're enjoying what God called you to do as well for that. So that's really neat. That's really, and that's what I want the people listening to. It's like you can do that. Some people said, "Oh, if when I retire from my job, or when I quit my day job, if I ever can do this, I would like to be a singer. I'd like to be an actor. I'd like to be whatever it is, or a missionary." No, missionary you can't do that, but you can still. You're the example of how a balanced man can be with doing what you love to do, still teaching and enjoying it, and have a family.
So now that you mentioned that, and what a success story I am, and you were right to say that. So one fun part of it that blends in, the students have bought in a little bit. So Johnny W, if you look him up right now on Facebook and Instagram, he posted his upcoming schedule. That was designed by one of my high school students. That makes me so happy. And so
Oh, that's neat.
he one of my dry bar cover was designed by a high school student, and so Johnny W saw that and he was like, I want one, so when people see it coming up, it was done by the high school class. So
That's
Steve
nice.
Hofstetter, have you heard of Steve Hofstetter? You know him?
Is he the guy with a beard that sang something like Trump or something? I don't know what was his song.
he
He
he does
was
have a
he?
beard sometimes. He typically doesn't sing, but he's from New York City. He's very well known. He's not typically clean, but he
Oh,
did a dry bar special, so he had to do a clean show for that, right? So he was on my dry bar night. I opened up for him at dry bar, and he did a clean set, and it's come out. One of my students designed his dry bar cover. Also, he's got like hundreds of thousands of followers, and a kid in Alabama sitting in a high school classroom designed his
that
dry bar.
is so neat. That is so neat. Now, wh- when did you get married? How old were you?
No, I was 29, but that was 13 years ago. So
Okay, what was that like? Were you the like were you a comedian back, doing comedy back then?
I was not. I started year one after marriage with my wife, and so um, yeah. But I married up. She's prettier than me. She's smarter than me, and our kids are too. That's the way we like it. We tell them they're pretty like their mama, but they're smart like their mama. So
But do they? What do you call it? How did she feel? How did she respond when you told her I want to do stand up?
I think a little surprised at first. A lot of my a lot of my roots go back to college. I got asked to tell stories and get-togethers a lot, and we didn't go to college together. We met after college, and so I mean, I think she saw some humor. But it's one thing to be funny. It's another thing to want to get paid to be funny in front of a lot of people over the course of years. And so I think she was a little surprised at first, actually.
Now, does she work as well?
She did until we had our first two, and she volunteers right now with a food pantry. And like today, she went
Oh,
and worked at a place to sell some stuff, but it's not like a full time thing or something like that. She's at home with the baby most of the time.
what kind of husband are you? Are you that kind of quiet, calm, funny? What do you like?
Um, I think quiet and calm most of the time. I mean, with three kids, you know how it is. There's roles like I'll be bathing the baby, and she'll be taking care of things downstairs, and then I'll come down and wash the dishes, and we'll chit chat as we pass, and then get to talk a little bit when things are done. But I mean, right now we're filling roles with
Really,
three.
you do the dishes and you bathe the child all in the same day yourself?
So well, on often, but not always. Sometimes we'll swap and trade, and it
Oh,
varies.
that's nice. Ask his wife, then we'll know what kind of husband he is. Okay, this is what Sarah's asking. Uh, yeah. So, what do you call it? Stories on the road. I'd love to hear that since it's a Laughter for All podcast. Any funny, any embarrassing, any crazy story happened to you on the in comedy?
Man, just one example. There, yeah, I've had some bad shows. Then, but bad shows are the fun ones to tell about later, right? And so, um, I had one show, and I don't want to say too much, but it was um, it was a beautiful evening. Most of the people there were not originally from America, and it was just a really neat experience. But my humor didn't translate. They were very nice, but they
Oh,
did especially think I was super funny, you know. And so I was kind of the downer on this big, nice event. And so my wife got to come with me to the event, and she tried to think of something nice to say to me after the show. She said,
oh, yeah, that's the worst. But it's one thing to have a bad show; it's another when your wife is with you or your kid.
so
Ah,
what she said was, she said, "Sweetheart, you tried so hard tonight." It's like that's the nicest thing she could think of. So
you tried so hard tonight. So, what bit are you working on right now? What are you working on as far as comedy? What do you?
the newest bit is actually yearbook signatures from kids. I do not have to write them. They are pre-written. It's just a matter of going through them and then testing them to see which ones land better with the audience, you know, and they're hilarious. And so I've got, 18 years worth of, I mean, just scores of like yearbook signatures. And I'll just get up there and tell them to the crowd. And the ones that land, of course, come back every time. The ones that don't
Yeah.
land will miss and try another one later. So
Do you actually have them written or do you memorize them?
initially written, but eventually, you'll figure out which ones go best, and
No.
then they can start to stick. And so, but some of both. Sometimes I will literally just read the testers out loud, and if they're good enough, read or not, they'll get them. So, and then the newest kind of show we're trying is different here in Auburn. Johnny W is actually coming here in a couple of nights to do our very first one. Paul Aldrich is coming in September to do the second, but we're doing like a variety show, and I'm just going to host it and host some local celebrities, and then have Johnny W and Paul Aldrich come to close the show as headliners. So
For the university?
local comedy club actually for
Oh,
that.
a local comedy club. Oh,
Hmm.
perfect. That's awesome. And okay, so people who are don't know anything about Photoshop.
Right.
Okay, I know a little bit. What kind of advice can you give someone who said, "Oh, I want to be able to do a flyer. I want to be able to do something like that."
Go to
What
YouTube.
go to
YouTube.
YouTube.
One of my best students said, "Mr. Cox, you're the second best teacher in here," and YouTube was the first. So
Wow. So YouTube can teach you everything you need to know about Photoshop.
pretty much right on. Last year I recorded myself teaching everything, and so on my own YouTube channel, I've got probably 90 tutorials on there, and but you could find better ones than mine too. So
Really? So we can go to your YouTube page and be able to learn whatever the students are learning.
it used to be all comedy, and then last year didn't have too much comedy. Now it's so much Photoshop tutorials. So
Wonderful. What would be your ideal show? Are you like, would you rather do a church? Would you rather do a comedy club? What would be your ideal gig?
I prefer the churches, but they're both a lot of fun. The structure wise, Dry Bar sets them up right. That type of thing. They're packed in and crammed in and stuff like that. And a lot of church shows can be like that. And so, church shows are probably my very favorite.
Wonderful, wonderful. And your parents, did they wanted you to be when you were young? Like, and what are they expecting their son to be doing? Comedy, teaching Photoshop?
Uh, my mom wanted me to be a math teacher, and that's not. I used to be okay at math in high school. Teaching it, it's just not my skill set. Dad, he didn't care what I was, but he was very happy when I did start dabbling in comedy. He used to drive me to a lot of comedy shows, and we'd quote lines from, Bone Hampton and people like that. And I mean, he'd just laugh and laugh and laugh. And so he very much enjoyed the comedy side of things. So
What do you call it? Michelle said, "Will you be ready for all the corn memes, Claiborne, if we learn what your students are learning?"
I don't like corn, and Michelle knows that, and the teenagers know that, and they use Photoshop to try to destroy my life with it. So they'll
With
Photoshop me. They'll replace my head with an ear of corn and type out like corn on the cocks and things like that. All so often. So
Have you ever had students where you go, "I don't want you in my class. I'm sick and tired of you. You're making my life miserable," or "You're too kind for that"?
I enjoy most of them. Some every now and then I might think that, but I wouldn't tell. It always is a little surprising if someone barely passes the level 1 class and then they sign up for the level 2 class. That's a head scratcher. But we usually get along. It's just a matter of like, you probably have a skill that is not here. Maybe you should try something else. But yeah, we typically get along.
That's awesome. So you said when you retire from your job, which is probably what? Another what? How many years?
I could retire in 6 years, but I'm not so sure I will. I think I might hang on for a little longer. So we'll see.
But you said you would like to public speak. What would you speak on? What
Um,
would be the topics that you would be speaking on?
I don't. I mean, I would for sure want to incorporate comedy. I don't know. I think maybe I could go around to schools or churches and have some kind of message and incorporate a lot of humor. But I don't know. But I at this point I don't know. Just something funny. Maybe it's some meat to the message.
That's awesome. And now, what do do you work on like having your own DVD? Have you ever considered writing a book or something like that?
I actually have written a book, but I just never had it published. What it was, okay, so kids come up to me, teenagers often, and they'll ask for letters of recommendation for colleges and things like that. And
Right.
so I would write them, I mean, a terrible letter of recommendation first, and then I would write them a really good one. And they'd come to get it, and I'd give them the bad one and just sit back and watch them read it. And so I started compiling these. And then I had so much fun. I started writing some for nobody, like just I would make up a letter of recommendation that people didn't even ask for, And so I have so many of those in a book. I call it, what was it called? Letters of recommendation, but it was like WRECK, rec, like letters of
Recommendation. Oh, I see.
I have a cover for it. I have like chapter illustrations inside it. Like it's pretty complete. I could add a few more to it, but I just never submitted it. So yeah.
So it's like what? So when people read it, it's just for them to read and laugh. It's just like it's different. Each letter is different, right?
Right. And they're so bad. I'll send it to you so just so you can see what it's like.
And for each profession, it's for each different. What do you call it? Like profession or something like that, or are they all have to do with students?
They're for high school students who want to go to college or get a scholarship or something like that. But in the bad letters, it's not necessarily represent. Sometimes I just need to show them to you. I'll use terrible grammar. I'll in advertising for things they don't want to be advertised for. I'll write a letter of recommendation to prison. I highly recommend that you accept the student into your institution, things like that. So
That's
that
that's
type of thing.
You're very calm. You are very quiet, very calm guy. I've seen you at the CCA and all that. What ticks you off? What makes you angry?
I mean, teenagers can. They okay. So here's one that ticks me off so bad, and you'll
Okay.
understand this. If you're doing crowd work in a
Yeah.
show, and this is the same as in my classroom doing banter with kids, I will try to come at people with, I call it a sword balloon, a balloon sword like a clown would make, and I'll bonk them on the head lightly with something that would hopefully offend no one. If your
Uh,
thing is you're a horse rider, I'm never going to make fun of that or say you're a bad horse rider. If I make fun of anything, it'll be something that I think you care nothing about. So I'll
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah.
Sometimes um, a teenager may not get the game and they won't come back with a balloon sword. They'll come back with a golf club and they'll say something that's like, oh, that's actually pretty offensive to me personally, that kind of thing.
Ah,
It's rare, but when it does happen, that makes me kind of mad.
right. Especially you have a lot of very sensitive culture, that age group.
Sure.
They're very sensitive sometimes. Yeah, we have to be. Have you noticed that you have to be careful in your comedy because it's a different
I, I've
walk culture or
I've heard a lot of story. I try not to get too close on that, but yeah, actually yes, I have crossed lines before with banter, not with like curse words or something like that, but just picking at somebody too much. So yeah, and some of it is real and some's not. Some things are offensive to people that honestly probably shouldn't be. If you're the only person in a million offended by something, like that might be a you problem. But if 1 out of 3 are offended, that's a me problem. Does that kind of make sense? And so
it does make sense. No, you're right. It does make sense. Now, what advice do you have to people who are watching and listening right now? What kind of advice and wisdom do you have for them in from your experience in life as a husband, as a father, as a teacher of high schoolers, as a comedian, as a believer?
uh, come to Jesus. That's the best advice I could ever give. My favorite words that Jesus says are "Come to me." He, I like how he's welcoming. He doesn't he I don't want to say too much or too little. Read what Jesus says out of his own mouth. Come to me, and when people do come to Jesus, he does what Jesus does.
I love your passion about the Lord. The way I mean that 30 seconds right now just gives you the highest appreciation on with me and everybody else who's watching. That's really I mean just when you're talking about the Lord. I mean I'm doing a study about Christ. I mean 15-week study about Christ and it just starts with the word wonderful like his name before he was Jesus on earth. It's just like you cannot even say it. You don't it's beyond us. I mean and when you say, come, yeah, come to Jesus, come to him. He is just beyond any expectation. And so, do you ever get the opportunity? I know you're in a public high school, right? Do you get
Right.
the opportunity to talk about the Lord?
Sometimes, not daily, but
Right.
sometimes, we talk a lot. When we're telling people come to Jesus, we're we believe that he died on the cross and rose and is alive, a living person. We don't think that he's just a historical figure, right? And so, as a living person who is also God, he can do what only God can do. He can do stuff. So yeah, but yeah,
Amen.
sometimes
Amen. Thank you so much for what you do. How can people get a hold of you? How can they book you to come and speak at their events and all that?
my website gives contact information. It's spelled funny. That's the thing. It gets misspelled a lot, but it's actually correct on your screen. So if people Google me, Claiborne Cox, and go to the website, or it's my email address is claiborncoxcomedy@gmail.com. So
So Claiborne, Clayburn. People
that's
who
it.
are listening, Burn. Claiborne Cox, Cox. Claiborne Cox Comedy at Gmail, or you can go to his website. Just Google Claiborne Cox comedian. I think you're the only Claiborne with a U.
That's
From it.
true.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. You're so funny, and you're such a good man. I mean, I say that with
And humble.
understanding and humble. Yes, what I just added to your humility right now.
Right.
So really, thank you so much for being with us. Love you. Hope we can work together. maybe if I'm close to your area, I would love to come and do the club with you and all that. So thank you so much for your time, man.
Hey, thanks for
God bless
having me. I
you.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. And you guys, tonight at 8:30 p.m. and every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. when Facebook allows me to get in, which is almost every night for the last 349, 29 or 24 dates. And then yesterday, Facebook decided, you know what? We're going to have some technical difficulties, but today we are able to fix it. So tonight at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook under Comedian Nazareth, you get to laugh with us with the Life with Naz. And again, I'm saying, uh, what do you call it? If you're watching this later, check us out weeknights 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. And I know in the last episodes I talked about the professional botanical vitamins that I've been taking. I'm still in the test trial. I am the guinea pig for this, people. And so far, I am more lean toward yes, they're working for me. I have a lot of energy, just balanced energy. I don't have any edgy stuff. I'm so calm. And also at the same time, the mental thing, the pills that's called the mental edge is really keeping me focused the whole day. And these are all natural, all professional. And really, so far, I am. If someone said, should I buy them? Should I get them? Yes, but not yet. Let me finish my trial, and if I'm still alive, yeah, I'll tell you how to get them. So, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Please let your friends know to subscribe to our podcast. So, and we'll see you later. And have a great night. Good night. Alrighty, and then we can finish the live by